You ready?
Yep.
Welcome to the Tonepot. Today we have Saxon Perez from the illustrious Antivision. So tell me just a little bit about yourself and your band Antivision.
Well, we started playing music in about high school, sophomore year. I was friends with a lot of the guys who were starting to want to be in bands, following other bands that we were going to the shows to see. I'd say Roid Rage and Bitchin' Dudes and some of these early bands that we were into.
Hell yeah.
I think by the time I had started wanting to be in a band, I was definitely into our punk rock scene and just enjoying that. And I had a little bit of music background, just drumming. Me and Robbie, our drummer in Antivision, were on drumline together. Yep. So we were chopped out. Enjoying that. We kind of speak that language. So I think that when he came to drum for our band, it was definitely a very natural suit. And as for, my other guitar playing history, it was really just kind of the basics, learning open chords and, some tablature and things like that. And it got around to learning how to read sheet music. And I was like too punk rock for that at the time. I was not a fan. Yeah. And when it came time, I graduated high school. I definitely had to learn how to read sheet music. It was pretty heavily, entwined with everything I did. I studied a music theory course when I was a senior, and that was a really good time as well. And that gave me, forward into the UNLV time I had. It was music theory and composition was my major. And that was pretty cool. I was a percussion major, so I definitely was studying marimbas and snare drum etudes. I was in lots of ensembles and marching band. It was quite a bit, actually, too much. In fact, I started to lose a bit of my music interest because I was studying all types of music in all forms, all directions, all the time. So it just kind of got a little bit much and wanted to step away from that and continue working. By the time I was getting out of UNLV and all, we were also getting ready for our first tour. So our first tour, I think, is what kind of separated me from wanting to continue music in an education source and just doing it, with my hands and with my friends. So that was pretty powerful at the time.
That's awesome, man. I didn't know you had a percussion beginning.
Yeah. I definitely identified with drums heavily before I played guitar. I thought guitar was going to be a little bit easier to just kind of pick up along the way, and I knew I'd save it for another time. And when it did come around, I'd say confidently, I learned how to play guitar as well as I do by being in this band. I was never really into learning a whole lot of covers or, just focusing on really much other playing than watching our other guitar player, Brian Dugan, play our songs. He was definitely a very heavy writer in the beginning of our band. So
for sure,
I think that just watching him, learning our songs was definitely my introduction to being a professional guitar player.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you had to pick a moment or a person, sort of what or who made you want to pick up a guitar in the first place?
That's pretty heavy. I'd say I really like a lot of, metal music is where I think I started learning music was, in Lamb of God records, in Slipknot records, had to represent the shirt here.
Yeah, dude.
I think a lot of Metallica and things like that were definitely inspirations, but it wasn't exactly what made me want to play guitar. When I found what I know now as punk rock, that's definitely what gave me that edge, because these were just bar chords that you could play, and it was easier to attain and just kind of have that energy as well, because I come from a lot of that metal that's very hype and stuff. So
yeah, for sure, man.
I reached an end there.
Yeah, dude, just fucking hell yeah, dude. That's what's up. So do you think the heavy tones of the Metallica, Slipknot, that kind of stuff that you sort of grew up listening to kind of shaped where you're at today, as far as tone and the heaviness of stuff?
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. I was never really all worried about how the guitars sounded or really, the technique levels of these guitar players that I, idolized and all, because it was more just about how it fit into the music as a whole.
Yeah.
You know, and
for sure,
because I was definitely thinking about drums and I had that kind of percussive voice in my head, that's where a lot of what I think I like about music is, you know, the drums is definitely very heavy. So when it comes to that, also those bands reflecting into the guitar work is something that came later. You know, I wasn't exactly thinking about, you know, how Jim Root plays his signature guitar in Slipknot, or how his playing style is different than Mick Thompson's, you know. And I think that I started to listen to a lot more of that after I was into punk rock and I was picking up and playing more guitar. It made me think of things in a different way. And so when I went back to these recordings and was listening to the guitar work in my favorite songs, most of the time that's because it was my favorite song, you know.
For sure.
Yeah. A lot of those songs shaped out to be exactly it. So, I mean, I can consider, you know, if we're talking Slipknot, I think that the third album, Volume 3, is definitely very guitar heavy. It started to pick up a lot more melodic styles with, you know, Corey Taylor and all. But the drums was always like the heaviest part of Slipknot that I liked.
For sure, yeah.
And Volume 3, I think, opened up a lot more guitar tonnage and style. For me, just in the guitar playing, really focusing on what those guys were playing and how they were playing, and like not really the tone per se, but just like definitely that unique style. And that led into, you know, All Hope Is Gone, which I think is probably my favorite Slipknot album because of the tonnage. And it was a record that was produced by someone else. They were recording with Ross Robinson, and I got my notes here. Do you mind if I take a look at them?
Yeah, dude, pull them out. In relation to absolutely none of that, how do you take your coffee?
I take my coffee black as midnight on a moonless night.
All right,
that's a little quote from Twin Peaks. Yeah, that's a little quote from Twin Peaks. I really like that show, and that just kind of solidified my interest in just drinking black coffee. Sometimes the coffee, the sugars and the sweets and things take it away from just it being some bean juice. So I like that.
Yeah, dude, bean juice. Bean juice gets me through my day. And you brought in some, what do we call this?
Cafe Bustelo.
Cafe Bustelo. We are not sponsored by Cafe Bustelo, but Cafe Bustelo, please feel free to reach out and hit me up, and we will definitely work something out here.
Yeah.
So back to the production on that Slipknot album you were talking about.
Yeah, right.
Right?
So the first Slipknot album was produced by Ross Robinson. He did, most of their records. Volume 3 is the one that I was talking about. It was produced by Rick Rubin. He did Rain and Blood from Slayer,
I know
which
who Rick Rubin
a lot
is,
of people
dude.
can atone, some of the best like guitar playing. Definitely. And, tonnage, it's a little
subjective,
a little smashy, I think, I think that a lot of that tone is a little aggressive for,
80s, dude.
The kind of thing that I was a little more interested in, because punk rock was a little more raw in the way that you could hear more of their playing versus what their tone sounded like.
What were some like punk rock bands that were sort of like inspirational in the tone wheelhouse for you coming up outside of the metal?
I've got to say, I never really attached punk rock to Green Day's American Idiot, because I was really young when it came out, and it was amazing. I thought it sounded amazing.
That was
but
Dookie era.
I didn't realize that it was punk rock until after I had started to discover some other bands like Black Flag and Minor Threat, and Bad Brains is definitely a very heavy influence on me, for sure. I like them a lot.
They're good.
And Green Day's American Idiot, I've got to say, is one of the best sounding albums ever. You think of all the guitar riffs, you think of the way that all the songs are written. That was definitely like a very, very early influence, I'd say.
A holy grail tone for me has always been like, Dookie and those early Green. Obviously, that's like whatever my older era growing up on that stuff. But that Billy Joe dude, he knows how to capture a beefy tone.
Mm-hmm.
He does. Yeah.
Doesn't he have names for the amps? Aren't they?
Pete and Meat.
Yeah, there you go. I was going to say Chewy and something else.
You were wrong, but that was good, dude. That was
yeah.
Good.
See, and I can appreciate that. People come from backgrounds of having these special amplifiers, and that's definitely something that's really cool. Like, Tony Iommi's custom amplifier is definitely very
Delaney.
unique. Yeah, exactly. Like that's a very, very interesting, style that just kind of no one else really, you don't see that. I think that one big thing about us being punk rockers and all is we don't see a whole lot of the very high gain, heavy metal amps because they're not so affordable. And they're also, definitely a little more precious to be taking to a punk rock backyard show where there's dirt and dust and beers on top of amps and things like that.
For sure. Yeah. I'm a collector of things, so I'll get them, but I understand the concern. I definitely feel it for a lot of the style gigs we play for sure. Yeah. I feel you. I've seen you with speaking of Slipknot, with like a Jim Root. I don't know if it's a Jim Root signature telly or if it just is like a vibe of that. I know you have this white.
No, it's the signature telly.
Okay.
Yeah.
For sure.
It is Squire, but that's okay.
Yeah, dude. Squire's they're killing it, man.
A lot of the tone in Slipknot comes from their EMG active pickups. Like the tightness in a lot of metal music is because of those pickups. And this Squire one had just, passive versions of those. They looked like EMGs, but they were passive pickups. And so I was never really a big fan of that, but I was also playing through amps at the time that were definitely not, along the lines of what I would consider what tone I was hearing in my head.
Yeah.
I was playing a Guitar Research amp. It was
Jesse Magana from Hard Pipe Hitter started on one of those too.
It was pretty low key. Yeah, it was a 4x12. So I was like, nice. I got a stack. I'm out here making sound. A lot of the amps that I was playing before were Brian Dugan's amps, and he had some really nice ones. I played one of my favorite amps of his was actually the Black Star 212 combo. Oh yeah, yeah. It was the one, just the combo version of the one that I have now.
HT40.
It was actually an AT100.
Oh,
it was
cool.
an HT100 combo. Yeah,
I
212.
use that head and Hall.
It was
for sure,
so heavy, and the first time I ever really fell in love with feeling the air moving from an amplifier was when we played this house show right after we played with the Addicts at the House of Blues. And
super sick gig.
Something about the way maybe I turned up a little bit more or something, but that was also the first show I'd ever played that Jim Root telly. So maybe it was the whole inner workings of fate happening at that moment that I felt that air moving behind my legs because I was standing in front of my amplifier. And that just I think that moment definitely changed me.
I feel like everyone remembers their first time feeling a tube amp. For sure. Yeah, that's a good one.
Everything after that, I got that Guitar Research amp because Brian was, going through amps, changing this and changing that. So I needed, my own amp, and this Guitar Research one was like pretty much what I was doing. I was playing even through, Brian's guitars and stuff like that most of the time back then too, because I didn't have all that nice of a guitar. So the first nice guitar I bought for myself was that Jim Root telly because I was interested, obviously, in a little bit more guitar playing, and so I respected him as a guitar player and all by then. And the way he sold that guitar, I guess I can say, he really wanted to go very simplistic with it. The matte finish was, so that you can really imprint on it and make it your own. And so I was very stoked about that, to be, playing guitar that was represented as someone else, but with my character and personality, driven into it from playing punk rock on it.
Weirdly enough, so much that I even questioned it for a second if it was a Jim Root signature.
Yeah, right. You don't see them so often. It's got your vibe, dude. Yeah, you don't see them so often. And I think that that's definitely like one of my favorite guitars ever. And when I swapped the pickup out, that was it for me.
What did you put in there? A Duncan?
It's a Seymour Duncan JB10.
Yeah.
So it's a slightly higher output, not quite the distortion, but that's definitely inspired just wanting a little bit higher output of a guitar. Nice. Obviously we were talking about EMGs there for a second, and they have that very active sound, which is articulate, like under the strings. I was saying earlier, under the strings sound, you can hear all the little nuances of everything. And so that was a really cool, unique kind of thing to get out of a passive pickup. So I really liked that one.
What made you want to make a jump to Reverend? Back here, for anyone who's not watching, we got his actual most current guitar.
I love it.
The Reverend. What made you want to switch to that? Because that definitely does not have EMGs, and it would hit me as more of maybe a vintage kind of a thing. What made you want to jump from a Fender vibe over to the Reverence. I think they're amazing, man.
Yeah, it's so sweet. I've got to say, it's definitely my favorite guitar ever. You know, in changing the pickup of that other guitar, I wanted to achieve a little bit different of a sound, something that had a little more sustain. You know, in the guitar, you know, obviously that's where a lot of that resonance comes from, you know, the woods choice and things like that.
Hot take or some.
Yeah. We can talk about wood all day. Anyways, I think that changing that pickup was really what made me kind of be more interested in actually trying to create a sound, because in the early days of me playing gigs and everything, I was just trying to be heard. I didn't care about what my sound sounded like. So the guitar research amplifier was fine enough. You know, I didn't start messing with pedals or anything, or I still, you know, can drop my whole pedal board and forget about it in any moment, because
for sure.
Really, you know, I'm just playing full throttle, all the knobs on all the time with that, you know, with all guitars, really. It gives you the most honest sound, you know. You want to be playing and hear exactly how you play, you know, so that's definitely pretty heavy on that. Changing that pickup was what started that. And so when I got a few other guitars, I have a Univox, a lot like that one too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a vintage
That's
beauty.
a High Flyer,
yep, that has
1976.
I think mine's 77. It's a little bit different, but
yeah.
The pickups in that guitar are some of my favorite ones. They are very, very honest. You can hear like how thin that guitar is. I mean, it has like almost no resonance. It's kind of honky a little bit, but that's okay. And if those pickups were in a better, you know, guitar, it would be amazing. And so that gave me a little bit of honesty, as opposed to the JB10 in my Jim Root, which was a little, you know, more higher output, meant to be a little more punk rock.
Cover up some.
Yeah, definitely cover up some technique issues, because I was still learning how to play well and pick properly and things like that. So I had another guitar that I came across while I was working at Guitar Center for a long time. Yeah. It was a white Telecaster, a lot like my Jim Root one, but it was custom built from pieces by one of the people who shop at Guitar Center. He's a regular. And every guitar that he brought in to sell us was just something right up my alley, something that like looked like how I wanted to play a guitar, or definitely played like one. I don't know. It's something about it just like was amazing. And so I got this sweet white Telecaster, and it was like the 2.0 of my Jim Root, because it had such a beautiful like burled neck, and the wood was amazing. It was set up amazing. It had a DiMarzio super something in it. It was pretty hot, but it had a very nice single coily sound. And that is also like that very thin kind of, you know, honest thing. So when that guitar got stolen from me, unfortunately, it's no faults of my own anyway. That gave me a lot of the writing that is now, you know, very current Anti-Vision, you know what I mean? For sure. That guitar actually, you know, I wrote a lot of sounds because of how that guitar sounded. I think I really enjoyed that guitar a lot. And so it kind of gave me that next level of, can you play punk rock on single coil? I was always so like, don't like the Strat sound. I don't really like, you know, sometimes Telecasters are a little too twangy and all. So that one just had that nice bite edge with the DiMarzio pickup in it.
That the guitar strung with 10 to 52s that inspired the track,
it's actually the 11 to 52s.
11 to 52, yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Was that
11,
the beefies?
It's 1140 to 1149, the Power Slinky.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah. I like a standard gauge. I don't need the heavy top string, but I do like that gauge higher on just about everything, so that I can really strum. I do a lot of bends and all, and the fact that my strings are thicker, I have to work harder to make it pinch, or, you know, things like that. In the heat
of a moment in a punk rock show, I find it's very easy to maybe overbend or
thicker strings prevent me from making mistakes I don't need to make.
You're not relaxing up there. It's you're going to war, so I feel you. A little more resistance can be desirable.
Definitely been playing those for most of my life, for sure. Actually, I really wanted that little bit heavier of a gauge, just to, you know, prevent so many of those mistakes, because I was still learning how to play really well. So that white Telecaster we're talking about, not the Jim Root one, but, you know, my 2.0. I think that one heavy thing that I really liked about modifying my guitars at the time was putting the graphite saddles on them. You know, what are they called? Graphtec. Yeah.
Got some on
those prevent all string breakage. They still sound really good. That was definitely something I modified on that Telecaster. I put those saddles on it. And so, I mean, I was ripping that guitar for so long, you know, definitely like trying to break strings. And they're perfect for, you know, going on tour and when you can't change your strings every time, you know, and I mean,
and every little bit helps.
Yeah. I definitely change strings pretty often. I do like to keep my strings pretty fresh and like feel on them. And when they've been on there for a long time or like after shows, you know, I'd clean them up really well. But anyways, tonage on the guitar here. I think since I've been playing all of, you know, those bridge saddles that are, you know, kind of
Fender style kind of block saddles.
Very flat because the guitars that I was playing are string through. I didn't like this style of bridge for a long time.
That's a tunematic kind of style bridge.
Exactly, because it tore my hand up while I was playing. I would play Brian's Gibsons or I played someone's guitar at a show one time and it had a bridge like that. And I just shredded my hand to death on this side and bled all over his guitar. And I felt so bad. But it's just because I wasn't so, you know, good at the technique of playing, you know, guitar in general that like I couldn't play that specific style. And so I had always strayed away from that. When I got the second Telecaster, that was just like my first one, but an upgrade. So I was like, very nice. Sounds good. After that, I had got that one stolen. You had given me a guitar, you know, a Fender style Strat, but it was just with a single humbucker.
Caster for sure.
Yeah, definitely pretty sweet as well. That had the sound a lot like my other Telecaster as well. So it's something that I can use in the studio or for any Anti-Vision performance because it sounds, you know, just like how we've recorded before.
For sure.
But that Telecaster with the DiMarzio pickup was very unique, and I think that after that got stolen from me, I needed to maybe look into something that was just, you know, very nice. And I had been following Reverend for years. I mean, I think that I first heard about them. It had to have been in like 2017. And they had a few models back then. And I was definitely a fan of a few of them. And the guitar player from Be Like Max, Chris Powers, was playing Reverend, you know, not too long after that. And so seeing him play that was just like, oh, Reverend, you know, I was just like, wow, it's a good looking guitar. Yeah.
He had that like a Sensei, like that kind of SG vibe. But
it was white,
sure.
right? Yeah. And see, I'm a sucker for white guitars. Cool. So man, that guy had it going on. I loved it. And I'd been following them for a while and they started falling out of being a guitar that I was so interested in because they started getting a little more styles with like whammy bridges and all. I was not really a big fan of that. I like, you know, stop tail or, you know, just like all of these.
For sure. Yeah. Not a lot of tremolos going on.
There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I forgot where I was going with that.
Well, let me just take this to do a break real quick.
Cool. Sounds good. Sounds great. So I was talking about the sound diverting from the single coil and then getting into Reverend guitars. Oh, and then okay, I'm gonna loop it back here. All right, I got you. No idea how to do this podcasting thing.
I don't know, dude. We gotta figure that together.
I feel natural though. I feel like I'm just like talking. I've crossed like most of the things that I wanted to talk about, and also not sent it up with all this shit that I wrote in my notes. Look at this page. Look at this page.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah, I definitely like. It was for reference.
So when I said don't overthink it, you overthought the fuck out.
Well, you know, it's just like the Tonepot. I wanted to be prepared, bring all of that tone knowledge. It was just like, what's the amplifier that he used on my favorite record? And so I don't know. I was really just going for like a slate so that I would at least know somewhat what I was talking about.
For sure.
To which now we return, you know, talking about how I came up on Reverend guitars.
And we're back.
Yeah, we're back. I was very interested in Reverend guitars just because I thought that they were very unique, attainable. It's because they were a small company at the time. And also just how kind of they took classic styles. You know, you see other Telecasters here on the wall, and comparably, it's just got a little bit different of a flavor. You know, it's a little softer on the edges with a slight angle. I don't know. I think it's really unique, you know, style. And so I had played.
What is that? The double agent? Is that what?
Yes, the double agent.
Cool.
Yeah, with the P90 and the pickup in the neck position there. It's pretty sweet. I think that pickup's real nice. But anyways, I played a Reverend guitar for the first time, you know, back when I was watching Chris Powers do one. For sure. I think I was at a guitar store in California when we were on tour one time, and they had a Sensei, and it was purple, and I was like, nice.
Damn.
And so I got to play that, and honestly, it was set up like garbage. And you can't say that,
like that sometimes.
Yeah, you can't say that it was the guitar company. Like, whoever has it on their sales floor should have it to spec. You know what I mean? That's just the responsibility.
Some companies don't adjust the guitars on their floor. Some companies.
Yes, companies we've worked for years. Anyways, I really liked that. And then in my time at working at said place where
at some companies,
you know, some companies, there was a Reverend that came onto our floor, and it was the Shade Balderos model from Code Orange. He has a, you know, 3/4 like measured guitar that's Reverend, and it's like matte. You know, they have a green version, kind of like the color on my strap, or they have like a blue with like, it's black edged blue fade, you know?
Yeah.
It's real nice, real nice. But it was a shorter scale. And so I played the hell out of that guitar because it had the nice rail hammer pickups that this one doesn't have either. The rail hammers I thought were really unique just in their design and like intention to create that sound that they do.
Always like that.
So the first song. I was like, oh, starting definitely to get a little charged by Reverend after playing that guitar for sure. And not long after that, my guitar was stolen, and I knew that I needed to find something to fill that void because I was so bummed, you know, just the quality of that guitar and how much my guitar playing had improved because of it, that, you know, I just needed to put something else in my hands that wasn't, you know, my Jim Root.
Weird coincidence too that the guitar we talked about earlier that I gave you was a black guitar with a tortoiseshell pickguard and a maple neck, and then you got this dope ass black guitar with a tortoiseshell pickguard and a maple neck, dude.
It's funny that works out that way sometimes. I'll tell you what. I mean, I think it's very unique. Just kind of having almost an identity built for me in guitars. You know, this is definitely what I think screams the most of, you know, all the culmination of, you know, my time playing punk rock and also my interest in nu metal and, you know, metal music and things like that, you know, definitely have just kind of all came to playing this guitar that is so honest. You know, we can talk about the pickups for a second being, you know, that the pickups that I've had on all my other guitars, you know, the JB humbuckers were very saturated, high output. The single coil one that was in my other Telecaster was, you know, a little more honest because it's single coil, but it was also, you know, that very higher output.
For sure.
This one has a pretty good output on that bridge position, but it's very honest. It tells all when I'm playing. And so sometimes when I'm not playing so well, or, you know, my hand cramps and I can't strum well, all of that comes through. It doesn't just saturate my amp and kind of hide away. Like, it's very, very cool. And so this,
you're on display.
This has definitely cut me above from what I started with that other Telecaster in, you know, finding my sound and my playing style into what now is, you know, probably the culmination of all of that together, just being, you know, the sound that I can say is me.
For sure. So like if you just had to be grabbing for one guitar right now, that'd probably be the big dog right there.
That'd be it.
That Reverend Double Agent. That's what's up.
Indeed.
Man. As far as the other components of your rig, I just wanted to kind of get a sort of a rig. I'm going to do another break real quick. I'm going to come back.
Sounds good. Oh, it was my phone here. Yeah, I should have. Yeah.
So as far as other components of your rig, aside from the double agent, What's your current rig rundown? Double agent going into...
Well, I think that I've always tried to avoid having too much pedals, because when you're punk rock, usually you're not trying to play your feet.
Says the dead Kennedys.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that going on for sure. And I think that effects are really cool. They definitely enhance a lot of that stuff. But one thing that I've noticed in, just being knowledgeable about tone and live performance relative to how we were playing backyards for so long, touring, being at venues where the sound is different every night.
Streamlined reliability.
Exactly. The streamlined reliability, I think, is something that just kind of allowed me to step away from being so heavy on pedals. What that turned into eventually is trying to, find a tube amplifier. So the first tube amplifier that I got was the Black Star, because of that moment that I had with the 100 watt, 212, that I felt that air against my back legs. I was like, man, that's it.
The 50 watt Black Star.
Yeah.
Is that what you rocking right now?
It's
for sure.
The HT50.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I got that amplifier because obviously it has good, modern tones to it in their distortion channels, a couple, selections. And at the time I was thinking, this rawness, this like honesty that I'm trying to find in my guitar playing, so that, I have to play well to be heard well, to, be a good guitar player, definitely came from an interest in playing through amplifiers that are heavily driven. I'm taking the sound of my guitar and I'm putting it first into a tube screamer. Obviously that's been used, forever. It's usually always on. It's on a pretty low setting, just so it has a little bit of crunch, I'd say. I don't like it being too squealy or too mid-humpy.
This is actually the board that you're using right now.
Yeah. This is it here. So, we'll talk about, of course, my tuner. I guess we can start with the tuner. Yeah, let's take it back one time. So obviously, because I'm flailing head and rocking out while we're playing, I don't play with my glasses.
A lot of hair to move around.
When I need to tune, I need a tuner that's big enough for me to see. And so this D'Addario one is one I've used for so long.
Yeah.
Because it's the only one that I can see without my glasses. Yeah.
I got you, man. Respect.
Love that pedal.
Large display.
The only reason why I have a pedal board is for this pedal, really. I mean, the rest of this, I don't need any of this. I just need this.
It's just candy.
Yep, that's my one pedal. If I, Anyways, the tube screamer is pretty standard. I don't like anything special in the, they talk about 808s and TS9s and all of that. It's just all colors of the same version.
So that is a mini TS9.
Yeah.
Right
mini.
there, just for anyone who's not visually seeing this right now.
Nerds.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Get a life.
Anyways, so that's usually an always on. I'm going to use this Hotone, what's it called? Gate. Yep. This is just a noise gate to prevent a little bit of the sound that comes from this.
Kill a little hiss.
Literally just this. I love the sound of this, but it has that hiss.
For sure.
And so I really like to kind of do that. This is a very low key gate. It doesn't, hard stop or anything. It doesn't really affect my playing. And it helps a lot when I'm playing live, because, what I'm doing next is I'm going to boost that signal again. This is a micro amp, an MXR, micro amp plus. I don't think they make this pedal anymore. I think they just use I think it's called the micro amp.
Yeah.
This plus one was a modified custom shop or whatever.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was definitely something that came around when I was playing guitars that weren't necessarily very good sounding. So I was heavily relying on both of these pedals to kind of make whatever amplifier I was playing sound
hitting that
raw
front end
enough. Yeah,
sure.
Exactly. Something that was definitely kind of driving to something that was easy. You can definitely say guitars that are heavily distorted, although they're noisy, they're much easier to play.
For sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And,
so
if you got a little love from a gate, on the front end, that's
exactly. That was just, this is my
helps.
crutch board. It was just a little bit of a crutch to help me get through, playing. And I think it kind of also built up my sound, because of what I was doing with these was playing through my Black Star on the clean channel, with a high level, definitely. So it was driving those speakers.
Yeah, for sure.
That I think is what started to allow me to have a really good and honest tone versus something that I was so used to listening to in metal music. All of those high gains sometimes are definitely not along the style of how I want to sound, you know?
Yeah. And if you are playing like something like just for example, like a festival or something where you're not able to bring your amp and you're reliant on a back line or some studio you're unfamiliar with to rehearse, having this crutch board, so to speak, is invaluable in a situation like that.
Exactly. Like the combination of my guitar and this part of the pedal board here is definitely, you know, I'd say what I can attune to being able to plug in and have my sound in just about any amp.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of cool. So
yeah, for sure.
You know, when it comes to gear and things like that, you know, I've never really been too into, you know, leveling up or getting some really nice gear. I just, you know, still bottom line, I want to be heard and I want something that's reliable for tour and also has, you know, its own kind of character sound. So
have you seen the MXR Double Down that they just released in conjunction with Third Man Hardware, Jack White's company?
I did hear about that. It's funny it's called MXRs. Double Down because, you know, we live in Vegas.
Double Down. It's 2 micro amps essentially with 2 outs. So you can have 2 separate boosts powering 2 separate amps. And it's like a boost and splitter, and it's kind of
that's dope.
Cool,
I can definitely talk for a minute about, you know, my amplifiers. You know,
well, before we get to that, let's say that you go micro amp into this. What is this?
So these are
for sure.
Yeah, these are deadbeat pedals. Yeah. This is an analog delay, and this is the chorus. I fell in love with chorus effect just because it's kind of swooshy and washy.
I love it,
sometimes when it has a little bit too much of the detune, it's a little distasteful, but you know, it's got a little bit of flavor. I think delay is really cool too. I've strayed away from using too many effects live because a lot of that doesn't translate. Goes back to just wanting to be heard. I was not trying to use effects that would muddy up my signal. Yeah. Because all of this stuff is going into the front of the amplifier. You know, it'd make a great, I'm sure the sound would be beautiful if I could put these through the front and then these through the effects loop. But that's too much cableage. You know, I'm thinking practical 5-minute setup on our band, you know.
Yeah, it takes need to be on and off stage.
In, 1 plug out of this. I'm talking, you know, plug to my guitar, plug to the amp, and it's it. You know, versus having to run a couple separates, you know, to the effects loop just for the tone.
Yeah, no,
for the tone,
which like one other dude besides you may notice maybe in a live setting, you know. I feel you for sure. So the streamlined reliability.
Yeah, exactly. So these are on here now because some of the tracks that we've been recording with Antivision have a pretty cool effect that our producer Cody was able to achieve, you know, after I did our tracks, and you know, we're just trying to add some more layers in the future of, you know, what we're doing. And
episode with Cody Levitt from Asteroid M Records, if you haven't heard that one yet, for sure.
Of course. So the delay going into the chorus is what achieved that effect. So I just happened to have these pedals, and so I put them on there to organize them I have them so that, you know, when we start playing these new songs live, this is just going to be kind of there to help try to recreate that sound, you know what I mean?
For sure. I'm definitely also a big fan of trying to like capture the tones you recorded, just as much as I am the school of thought of like, who gives a shit? No one's going to notice. Yeah, so it's like a devil angel on the shoulder.
My touring rig, you know, we've been talking about it, the Black Star, you know, my pedal board here and my guitar is definitely something that's like been a staple for, you know, at least several years now before COVID and all. Like, so been playing that for a while.
All this pedal board is going into the Black Star head for your rig.
Yep, through the clean signal on a pretty high gain. There's a little bit of EQage happening here, but it doesn't really matter because that's just, you know, the honesty of the guitar speaking to the amp. And the, you know, tone stack that's basically, you know, happening in the amp of a drive channel is what I'm doing here instead. You know, it's like something that I can take with me, my tone with me, instead of, you know, that's, we were talking about that. But I was also playing an orange CR120, the solid state, for a long time.
Those are pretty fantastic solid state amps,
That's what I toured with for a while, you know, with a Marshall MG cab. And
reliable, tiny package,
small sized, great for touring. 10 out of 10 would recommend. And you know, I think that I would really like to you know, upgrade the speakers someday. Some neodymiums would be cool to lighten it up, make it even more tourable.
Of that, a tiny little 412 that you could just throw on your shoulder.
But that orange definitely, I think, lent to a pretty heavy interest in sound. That was before I got the Black Star, actually. And I have that amp. I still love that amp. It sounds the same now as it did back then. And that's just amazing. And so Brett uses it in our band.
Yeah.
Yep. So it maintains that sound
Maybe
because
we'll
it's something that we've always played
episode.
live with. You know, it's been part of my sound, and now, you know, my sound is our Anti-Vision sound.
For
so
sure.
that's definitely like exemplary of that. And I think the orange was because I was definitely interested in the Jim route. You know, I seen him playing an orange amp.
Mm-hmm.
There's who else can I think of that was playing orange at the time that like made me interested in that.
I've seen actually like Crowbar was touring with those same CR 120 heads too, and they get pretty massive tones. That's like more of like that solid state Randall thing that they did before, but
yes,
it's like it gets a nice fat heavy tone. You know, they have great clean channels too.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, on
it's
those
the sound
amps,
of the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, actually, that's more about their speakers. You know,
Shut up.
It's more about their speakers. I'd say, you know, I've got to say, like, I've always wanted an orange cabinet, you know, 412s, because they're so bitchin' sounding. But
they don't look bad
very
either,
heavy.
you know what I mean?
They're very heavy. They're not so tourable, especially
Yeah.
if, you know, I've kind of loaned my own gear for the most part. It's like, I'd rather not do that. I'm just going to take the little MG and have a good time.
For sure, man.
As long as I'm heard, that's all, you know, that's all it really hits. So for a while, you were talking about that double down pedal.
Yeah.
How it splits the signal. For a while, Brian Dugan wasn't playing with us because he was living out of state and things like that. So
the 4-piece era.
You know, these are some of these times when we had really good shows that we wanted to continue playing. And, you know, there was a while where we had to turn down shows just because we didn't want to play without him. And moving on to, you know, playing without him, I think, you know, can be, you know, looked on in different ways, different opinions and all from all of us, or, you know, him and all. But I picked up an ABY pedal. And so I was playing through my Black Star and my orange amp at the same time and was able to switch them and things like that. And that was definitely a really cool era, because I think that just made me feel like a monster, you know? Like it was like, instead of having just one amplifier that I had to worry about, I was also thinking of 2 guitar players. So
that's new for me too. I've been experimenting with it. It's a different vibe, and it fills some space.
It's a perfect fit, I think, for, you know, filling in at the time, because our guitar, our band is very, you know, guitar heavy, and a lot of our songs start with solo guitar, you know, starting the riff or, you know, doing something to, you know, kind of cue the song in. That was something that I was able to achieve with 2 amplifiers by turning one of them off.
For sure.
And so I would start the song on my amp, you know, standing in front of it, obviously, so that it would be there. And when everyone would come in, I would click that other amp on, and it would just fill that sound.
Yeah.
And that was definitely a very, very cool thing. You know, it was hard to not be a 5-piece. And so when we pulled Brett into the band, we had all the gear for him, and he can, you know, just come and play any guitar, and, you know, the amplifier is there for him. And so that's just kind of his more exemplary of our sound. You know, I think,
because for context, this Brett we're speaking of,
yes,
Brett Wood lives in Seattle. He does not live out here in Las Vegas, where we're shooting this, and where the home base is.
I mentioned Robbie over there too. Shout out to the boys one time real quick. Brendan, Robbie, Alan, Brett. Yep. Good times.
The boys. Yeah, man.
But yeah, definitely, you know, with us living in different states and all, I think it just kind of is going to take, you know, some more work and all to continue maintaining our band like how it has been.
Relatable.
You know, when we started this band, we were all in high school and we didn't have anything else to do but hang out with each other. So, you know, we were sitting around and playing music and getting high and just having a good time like that. And
sounds like a good time.
Of course, we all grow up, things separate, you know, people go here, people go there. And we've got Robbie in San Diego now. We've got Brett out in Seattle. And, you know, the 3 of us that are here, me, Alan, and Brendan, you know, we just do our best on our local bit. You know, we've been entwined with our scene for, you know, almost a decade now. Our band is coming up on, you know, 9 years old. And,
for sure,
you know,
congrats.
having played, thank you. Yeah. Having played for that long, I think, I feel like I've never been so sure of having, you know, a unique sound, you know, something that is something I hear in my head, not just because it's familiar, because I've been playing it so long, but also, you know, just playing in the key of Anti-Vision.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
Yeah. Like I said, I learned how to play guitar by being in this band. And so teaching me that way, you know, I play the scales and the sounds that are anti-vision and put my own spins on them that are, you know, my influences from metal and, you know, punk rock and things like that to,
sure.
you know, just kind of facilitate how I feel and all. And I'm glad that I'm able to voice, you know, with the power of music instead of my words, because I'm not so well with my words. So I'm glad that Brendan's got me covered on that. Yeah.
In relation to your voice of music, what is your opinion or workflow, or however you want to go about it, for recording guitar tones and your live tones? You have this rig that we just went through for your live tones. Is that what you try to stick with when you are going to record? Does it vary? Do you leave it up to producers?
I'd have to say Cody Levitt from Asteroid M Records is our producer. We go way back. He's been producing us. He's been the only person that's produced us, besides like some live recordings and things like that, that I've used something different on pretty much everything we've ever recorded. So I can say confidently that not a single thing is the same besides my Telecaster, my Jim Root Telecaster that I play, and now this guitar. But I think that really overall, all the tones that we've recorded have been different every time, because we've had different amplifiers, or Cody has had different stuff he wants to try out in the studio, or things that I was like, let me play that. For
sure. So you're down to experiment and try to see what new things you could find on a case by case kind of thing.
Really, for the most part, I think that my playing and my style come through in everything that we've produced. So enough to say that, you know, my tone doesn't really matter because my character speaks through it. So I think that we've used Marshall tones, we've used orange tones, we've used my Black Star on recordings. I've used blends of my Black Star and my CR120. We've used a lot of Brian's amps at the time, you know, the Black Star. We've definitely used, Brian had a mean fucking OR50 that was so dope. Fuck, dude. Yeah, through a seismic cab 212, man, it was a monster. And
given all of that tone shape, like, do you give any consideration to where you sit, like sonically, as far as an EQ in relation to having a second guitar in the band? Or is the second guitar in this kind of setting more of like just like a wall of sound of like maybe two similar tones? Are you guys trying to do complementary things?
Yeah. So this is something that's something that I started to pick up on when I was getting interested in metal guitar playing and the use of two guitar players. Like, you can talk about Power Slave being my favorite Iron Maiden album. You know, that has got some wicked dual guitar players.
That was a fist bump for everyone just on audio.
And those are just hot rodded strats through Marshalls, and it's just as simple, clear as you can get. And their character speaks through that,
dude.
You know, and it's like I can also atone that to like Machine Head's album, The Blackening, is one of my favorite albums, like top 5 ever. And that's got a lot of really awesome guitar tones, first of all, and also really awesome playing, dueling guitars, riffs that are just like ripping through your skull. Like, I don't know how to describe like how awesome that was, like kind of rediscovering that band multiple times over. Like, oh man, I really like it because of the drums. And then you listen the next time, you're like, oh man, that guitar is just ripping back there. You know,
that's a unique thing that you get to experience, like coming from predominantly percussion and then switching to the strings, man. That's cool. Yeah,
definitely. So those lead guitars, you know, of course, Slipknot too. That two guitar aspect was something that we always wanted in our band for a full sound. You know, obviously that noise, that bit of character in two guitar players goes a little further than just being a 4-piece. I think sometimes, especially, you know, when all of your members are, you know, not characters, but definitely like, you know, they have their own personality. They groove and move in different ways. And so when you're watching people up there do their thing, like that's a little more entertaining. So our 5-piece was definitely something we wanted to hold on to. And because I had the orange, that's a very mid-humpy style amp. And then the Black Star is a modern one that's going to have, you know, a heavy low end and a heavy top end, you know, not so much of a mid focus, which is, you know, I use these pedals to kind of heighten that mid a little bit, just to kind of give a unique character to it. But my Black Star fit around the orange
for sure.
You know, the tones just kind of, they have their own unique sound and they're just as loud, but somehow, you know, they fit around each other. Yeah. And so that is something that I had focused on when I bought that Black Star. I knew that that was going to be a good choice to complement the orange, because I would never get rid of it. So I think that that Black Star was definitely a good choice in creating, you know, our sound, because they fit into each other. You know, Brett can play whatever he wants, from full strums to solos to things like that, and it's always going to speak through in its own way compared to how mine, you know, speaks with, with the high ends and the trebles, and, you know, my solos and, you know, just regular beat parts and all. So
all in its own little pocket.
Definitely. For sure. Yeah. That's heavy 2 guitars. Love that.
Hell yeah, dude. One of the last questions I've been asking everybody on here is the desert island rig question. So if you, Saxon Perez, had to just please your ears, and you could pick one guitar, one pedal, and any type of cable, obviously, and an amplifier to make your tones, what would be your desert island rig? And we'll run you power, dude. Don't trip.
Oh, nice. Okay. I'd say definitely my Reverend. I love that guitar so much. It's given me so much of my, I feel like my adult guitar playing, you know. I feel like I've finally reached a guitar that
Reverend is for the people too,
you know, my level.
Oh,
of course. Yeah. It's definitely real good company. I think the builds on everything I've picked up from them was really good, except for the setup on that one. You know, the first one.
No fault of Reverend. All fault of companies. You know, companies.
So it's going to be my Reverend. I do use cables that were crafted by our producer. Desert Rat Audio makes these cables. Yep. Pretty sturdy. This one's got braided, red and blue with a green underneath. I like that little bit of a Ghostbusters flavor, kind of bubblegum pink looking. I don't know. I think it looks kind of like a laser shoot, but these are great cables. I use them for everything I do. And I'd say if I had to choose one pedal, it'd have to be my Diodario tuner. Yeah, it'd have to be the tuner, because if I can't bring a snark, I sure as hell can't tune my ear very well.
Glasses? I don't know what the situation that led you there in the first place was. We're just talking the tone, for sure.
So guitar into my tuner with my awesome Desert Rat Audio cables, and
all the amps you've ever played in your life, even heard, you know? Just
see, that's what's so hard for me, is because whatever amp I would have, I'd get sick of it. That's just how, you know, guitarists and tone enthusiasts are just kind of like,
Cody set the parameters that you cannot pick a modeler or a digital amplifier, and I'm going to stick with.
No, I wasn't going to do that.
So
no, I was going to choose one amplifier.
I wasn't going to do it.
I've played through, you know, if we're talking single rec, I've played through that. I've played through a dual rec. I've played through a Marshall, maybe not the Jube.
Jubes are tight for sure.
Yeah, I've definitely played, you know, standard 800, standard 900. I've played your Friedman amp, which I thought was pretty sweet.
Hell yeah.
I think it's got a real good sound to it. But
Friedman Rent 50, go get one.
For some reason, there's one of my first guitar amps came in one of those Fender packs, you know, with the guitar and all that. It's a little 10-watt practice amp. And something about the distortion on that amp is so wicked. You know, it's so thin because it's a little 10-inch, of course, but something about, you know, being able to just like turn that distortion click on and put the volume all the way up is just so sweet. You know, I really love cabs and, you know, things like that, but sometimes those little simplicities and like little amps are just, you know, so dope.
Now that you say that, I've never had as much fun as I did when I was a kid jamming in my room with my little Squier and a cable going right into I had a 90s PV Rage, but same principle. Nice, a little tiny combo. You hit the button and it goes to distortion, which at least at the time, I don't know now, but that was like ripping, dude. Like, yeah, dude,
definitely. I can say confidently that I've used that amp to like write songs on. I've used that amp to test pedals. I've used that amp to just fuck around in my bedroom with, you know, my Black Star set up in my bedroom, you know, with my 412, like is, you know, not loud obviously, but you know, like set up to be loud. And then I'd have that AVY pedal split off to my little 10-inch sitting on top.
You dirty dog.
Yep. just to have it there with a little bit of flavor. And that was just maybe a little too much, but I enjoyed that. You know, definitely just kind of having that thing. I still have it. I still use it. I've used it for some of the production on, you know, a project that I've been working on my own and all. And I think that that's kind of cool, putting, you know, not only guitar through it, but other things, because it's, you know, just a little small amp.
For sure.
Yeah. Production has a ton of that like small amp thing. You know, you can think like Queens of the Stone Age have a pretty heavy sound in small amplifiers because they have a very close sound that's very clear in their drums, you know, everything. So you know, it's really dope. I gotta give it up for them on that. Just having kind of broken me out of wanting to be two-tone savvy, I guess, or, you know, they record through weird things and small amps and stuff like that.
Tone is so subjective, man.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why I've never really taken the whole tone thing so seriously. It's just like, as long as I'm heard, what I'm playing is clear, you know,
it's
I'm
subjective,
a good enough. But
while we're on the subject.
Exactly.
You know? Well, cool, man. Like, last but not least, like, just plug your links for Antivision, or if you're into any other creative endeavors, please let anybody know.
Definitely want to give a shout out again to Cody Levitt from Asteroid M Records, who's been producing our albums for, you know, our whole career, and definitely has generated a lot of what is, you know, our sound, and a lot of what we've developed into as a band is coming through more so than ever, I'd say,
for sure,
in our new productions with Cody. So
amazing.
I love that. Yeah, of course. I'm in Antivision, you know, that's our Instagram at Antivision LV. I'm really proud to have been in this band, you know, since the beginning, you know, starting this band with me and Brendan and Brian Dugan. That was definitely like what kind of changed my life and all. So Antivision is very, very important to me. And otherwise, I'd say that's about all I got.
And that's what's up, man. That was captivating. It's been cool seeing you guys like kind of grow and like hit it hard as a band from afar or whatever, you know? So that's
definitely.
Rad. Well, yeah, man, this has been the Tonepot. Like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at the Tonepot Podcast. And thank you very much for checking it out.